So I think we can go ahead and start. Very glad to be all here. Since their association, Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Jayata, without whom we would not have this opportunity to associate with all the pure devotees in the Bhagavatam. So Bhagavata Pravaha. So far, we have heard the Srimad Bhagavatam overview, and then significance of Srimad Bhagavatam and summary of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second canto, and third canto. So in the third canto, we have divided this. The first one is Vidura goes to Uddhava. So Vidura Uddhava Samvada. Then he's sent to Maitreya. So Maitreya Vidura Samvada. After that is about pastimes of Lord Varahadeva. There we have heard about Vaikuntha Dhama, right? And Sriman Narayana and his glories. And after that, we have heard about Kardama Muni and Devahuti Katha. And now we are hearing about Lord Kapila's instructions to Mother Devahuti. In that, again, first question of Mother Devahuti to Lord Kapila was, how can I get out of this aham mameti illusion? Because this is the root cause of all my miseries. So to that question, Lord Kapila says it is done by Adhyatma Yoga. And this Adhyatma Yoga can be done in 3 ways. That's Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. And then second question, Mother Devahuti. Okay, in Bhakti Yoga, can you tell me which is more efficient and which is more potent? Then the answer is Bhava Bhakti. If somebody can do Bhava Bhakti, Bhakti with Bhava, with emotions, that's the best. That's recommended. That was the answer from Lord Kapila. Then Mother Devahuti says, what if somebody cannot do that? What can they start with? Then Lord Kapila talks about the sadhana bhakti. And in between, Mother Devahuti also asks about how Jnana Yoga can lead to aham mameti, dispersion of aham mameti illusion, and how Ashtanga Yoga also can get rid of aham mameti illusion. So all those were discussed, and we are now discussing about how sadhana bhakti is to be incorporated in order to get to Shuddha Bhakti. That we are discussing. That we have discussed in the last session. So we have discussed about sadhana bhakti in detail in the last session, right? And today we are going to hear about the time factor and samsriti. Here, Mother Devahuti is asking this for a purpose. She has already asked what to do if one cannot do Bhava Bhakti directly. Okay, and she got the answer sadhana bhakti. So now she's thinking, okay, now that we have all the information about bhakti, if somebody cannot do Bhava Bhakti, they will start with sadhana bhakti, and then the final result of sadhana bhakti, as they do the sadhana bhakti, then they will gradually come to a stage where yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachami na pranashyati. Right? So they will come to a stage where they are completely Krishna conscious. This is good. But and what happens when somebody is that in completely Krishna consciousness? When somebody is practicing bhakti, how is that their consciousness has evolved? For this, Mother Devahuti is asking. The next thing that Lord Kapila says is about the evolution of the consciousness. How bhakti is more scientific, not just emotional, but scientific. There are transcendental emotions in bhakti, but bhakti is also science of devotional service. How is it scientific? That part will be covered today by hearing about the evolution of consciousness. Okay, that we will be discussing. And the second thing is about the time factor. How would anybody else look at the time factor? How would a devotee look at the time factor? So these two topics are touched here in the same chapter. And after this, now that Mother Devahuti has asked all the relevant questions of how bhakti can cause the blossoming or evolution of the consciousness, and bhakti can make a devotee look at the time factor as the energy of Vishnu. Now that she has asked all the relevant topics, the last topic she would ask is, if only someone, whoever has heard all these topics, by this time they're convinced to get out of this aham mamiti, 3 yogas are there. Of the 3 yogas, the bhakti is the best. Yeah. And the bhakti can bring one to complete Krishna consciousness. Hearing all this, one would be convinced and one would take up the process of bhakti yoga. But if at all there is somebody who is not convinced yet, who is not determined yet to take up the devotional service, then Mother Devahuti is asking, for those people, can you please tell how miserable this samsriti is? Samsriti is birth and death cycle. Just hearing about how miserable it is, probably they will take up the bhakti process and get out of that miserable karma cycle and get into this liberating and ecstatic bhakti cycle. So keeping that in mind, Mother Devahuti asked the very last question. Can you tell me about samsriti also? So that is the reasoning why these topics are going in this sequence. How bhakti is evolution of our consciousness, and how time factor is viewed as the expansion of the Lord. These two topics we will discuss, and after that we will hear about the samsriti side. Okay, so I'm going to, we will go to Lord Kapila and Mother Devahuti. Share the screen. All right. Yeah. So we have heard so far till here, right? The last session, how one would start sadhana bhakti and come to this beautiful stage. Where it says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanna, Brahmane Kavihastana, Pandita, Panditaina Swapakena, Sunichaina Swapakena, Pandita Samadarshana. This having a spiritual vision, this is having spiritual vision. Just looking at all the embodied beings, all the living entities around as spiritual sparks. And so want to mention this beautiful stage again. The end result, not the end result of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti blends into Shuddha bhakti, and this is how it blends. As we do the sadhana bhakti, gradually, as the purification happens, then we will be taken to this stage where we become completely Krishna consciousness. What does that mean? Complete Krishna consciousness. Initially, we will be cultivating, we will be practicing to think about Krishna voluntarily like that with effort. But gradually over a period of time, we spontaneously, effortlessly, naturally see that everything is Krishna's. Everybody around belongs to Krishna. Everything around belongs to Krishna. He is the proprietor and he is the controller. And we will lose the tendency to control anything, control anyone or anything in life. We will lose that tendency. And gradually over a period of time, we lose the tendency of wanting to enjoy for ourselves. All these tendencies are gradually turned to, the enjoyment tendencies turned into servitude. And the controlling tendency is gone and the dependency gradually increases. In this way, when the controllership, when we have to be ready for this. We want to let that controllership go. We want to let that false enjoyment ship go. Only when we want, then the things will happen. Otherwise, it is explained, a marriage party was sitting in the boat and they wanted to row to the other side, to the other village. So everybody sat in the boat, and then it was in the night. Everybody sat in the boat, and the person, he started rowing. He started rowing. The whole night he rowed the boat, and in the morning they found themselves in the same place, the very same place where the boat was placed. They did not go to the other side. He was rowing and rowing. Why is it like that? Because they did not take off the anchor of the boat that can let the boat go. So the boat was still hooked to the sand there with the anchor. That's why even though the boatman was rowing, the boat did not move. So in the same way, we are practicing bhakti. But introspectively, we have to see if we are willing to let go this controllership, if we are willing to cultivate that servitude, that willingness that we should have. We may not be having like 100% overnight, but that is essential though. We have to remember this example of boatman. Yeah. So when that controllership gradually goes away and false enjoyment gradually fades away, then the true enjoyment will be experienced. That's the beauty of bhakti. Not that when the enjoyment goes away, then we will not have any fun or anything tasty or any happiness. SNA, we will start to relish the true enjoyment that would never go away. And it would only increase and increase. So in this way, when we do sadhana bhakti, as the controllership goes away, as the false tendency for wanting to have that false enjoyment goes away, and as the dependency on the Lord increases, then gradually we will effortlessly and naturally see that everybody belongs to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. And everything that we see is meant to serve Lord Krishna, not for our personal gratification. And whatever happens in our life, we will tend to see that it is Lord's arrangement in our life for our own good. So all these things gradually, naturally happen to us. They will naturally come to us over a period of time. So in this way, Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashyati. Tasyaham na pranashyami sachame na pranashyati. We will get to that 100% Krishna consciousness, where everything outside is Krishna's, everything inside is about Krishna, and we just see this life as an offering to Krishna. And Krishna also reciprocates equally like that. He gives himself to us. So that's how sadhana bhakti gradually leads us to the raga bhakti. That is raga bhakti. Yeah, so that we have discussed. And now, how is this bhakti, the devotion that we are doing, what is it happening to us from within? We have this annamaya kosha, physical body, manomaya kosha, the mental body, and then pranamaya kosha, the breathing, prana layer, and then jnanamaya kosha, intellectual body, then vijnanamaya kosha, right, the spiritual one. So how is it the devotion that we are doing is affecting these different koshas? This is why this is science of devotional service. When we are doing this devotion under guidance, then what happens is the consciousness that is present more on the annamaya kosha, the very outer layer, the bodily concept of life, attachment to the physical things, identifying the physical things. Slowly the consciousness shifts from Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, to Jnanamaya Kosha, to Vijnanamaya Kosha. This is what happens when we do bhakti. Here Lord Kapila is responding to Mother Devahuti, and he is explaining how there are 8,400,000 species, right? All of them, they belong to this one of these categories of consciousness. So starting with immovable living entities, right? Like stones, hills, plants, they are immovable, inanimate objects, right? Do they have life? Ahalya Devi, she was in the stone. She has life. She had life. Govardhanagiri had life. Yamala Arjuna trees, they had life, right? So though they are immovable, they had life. So these immovable living entities, they have life, but their consciousness is very shrunken. So that consciousness is called Sankuchita. This is Avritta Chetana, covered, totally covered consciousness. The plants can see. The plants can see and they can feel the touch too, right? But their consciousness is shrunken. So that is Avritta, their consciousness is covered. So that is Avritta Chetana. So these inanimate objects, until, so the plants can see and touch. And then after that, the fishes, they can taste, seeing, touching, tasting. Fishes can taste. And there is some mention about the bees also, that they can taste. And then snakes, they can hear. So like that, the evolution happens. As the evolution of the consciousness is happening, so is the body changing outside. So like that, the living entities are in Avritta Chetana, covered consciousness, immovable entities. And then comes Sankuchita Chetana. These are the animals that we see around, Sankuchita Chetana. They have shrunken consciousness. This shrunken consciousness, their symptoms are the four things: eating, mating, sleeping, defending. Sankuchita Chetana. If any animal is doing only these four things and do not have spiritual inquisitiveness, athato brahma jijnasa, then it is said that particular living entity is in Sankuchita Chetana. It can be all the animals around, and it can be human beings also. If they don't have that spiritual inclination of Atato Brahma Jijnasa, then the Vedic scripture calls those human beings as Vipada Pashu. Why? Because they have the Sankuchita. After that is Mukulita Chetana. Once they are starting to focus on this, beyond this, for eating, meeting, sleeping and defending, then that is Mukulita Chetana. So generally the human beings are from this category on. And after that Mukulita Chetana is Vikasita Chetana. Vikasita is blossoming. Mukulita is budding, still budding. And Vikasita is blossoming. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura, he explains in Jaiva Dharma how sadhana bhakti is Vikasita Chetana, starting to blossom. Consciousness is starting to blossom. And the next stage is Purna Vikasita Chetana. When the sadhana bhakti is slowly transforming into Raga Bhakti, then the consciousness also slowly evolves more and more, blossoms more and more to fully blossomed one, which is Shuddha Bhakti, the pure devotees, liberated persons. So their Chetana or consciousness is Purna Vikasita Chetana. Yeah? So that's the description Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives. So in this way, Lord Kapila, he describes starting from the inanimate objects, all these animals, how the evolution goes on, how these, as evolution goes, how these later species are more evolved than the former ones. In that way, he describes about all the animals and says, and then comes to the humans. And he says, humans are better than animals. And in humans, the Brahmanas, or whoever knows the Brahmajnana, that is Vaishnavas, they are better. And that's where the sadhana bhakti starts. Okay. And as the consciousness blossoms, then same sadhana bhakti, all the sadhakas, then they will be transformed into the liberated person. So in this way, this liberated person who is fully Krishna conscious, who is a pure devotee, is the best. That's what Lord Kapila states by describing the signs of evolution of the consciousness. So here, for us, take-home thing is, how do we know that if our consciousness is expanding? Say I'm doing sadhana bhakti. I've been doing it for many, many years. How do I know if my consciousness is evolving? As our consciousness evolves, the qualities in the mode of goodness gets predominant. So we know that sadhana bhakti is heading right way, and our consciousness is evolving when we know, when we see, when we feel, when we perceive, and when others see the mode of goodness of qualities, when they are increasing, it means the consciousness is evolving. Past the mode of goodness is pure devotion. That is Purna Vikasita Chetana. So this is why our indicators of getting deepening in the bhakti or evolving in the consciousness, the indicators for that, for that is the qualities that a person has. So the qualities that a person has inside is proportional to the blossoming of the consciousness within. As the person moves from ignorance to passion to goodness, it means the consciousness is blossoming. And that's how the qualities can be seen outside. Okay? So in this way, Lord Kapila is saying this pure devotee has Purna Vikasita Chetana, and he is the best. He is the topmost in the gradation of jivas. Okay. Next one. Yeah. So after saying that, how Lord Kapila is saying how pure devotee. What is his natural disposition? Manasaitani bhutani pranamed bahumanayan Ishvaro jiva kalaya pravishto Bhagavan iti. Manasaitani bhutani, the manas with the mind, itani bhutani, he looks at the bhutani, all the embodied beings around, and then pranamed bahumanayan, respectfully he bows down. Why he's being respectful to everybody around, the cats and dogs and cows and people and trees and everybody around? Because his consciousness is so blossomed, so purified. He's seeing Ishvaro, the controller, Jiva Kalaya, in the Jivas, Kalaya, expanding as Paramatma. Pravishto, he's entering the Jivas, Bhagavan iti. So Bhagavan is entering the Jivas as Paramatma. He's able to have that spiritual vision at all times. And that's why he bows down to all the living entities. This is who the pure devotee is. Krishna Adhisthana. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura explains how the qualities of Trinadapi Sunichena, they come on this foundational principle. So that's pure devotee. Now that we have heard about the gradation of jivas and how pure devotee is the topmost and his natural vision, they don't struggle. These pure devotees, they don't struggle to see that everybody is spiritual. Only in sadhana bhakti we try and try and try. We voluntarily put effort. But the result is going to be there. We are bound to get the result. Practice makes men perfect. The same thing here. Looking at our effort, Lord Krishna, he is very merciful. So initially it can be with a lot of effort. It is like walking uphill. Sadhana bhakti is like walking uphill. That's the difficult part. So with the help of the sincere devotees around, as we hang on to the katha of the sadhus, if we somehow, do our best to walk that uphill, we know once we go to that hill on top, the other side going down is so easy. So that's when the raga bhakti starts. So all the difficulties until getting to the nishta. Nishta is like we are almost coming to the top of the hill. After that, it is said that, the anartha nivritti part takes the most time. It's difficult. But after that, it just happens pretty fast. The progress of bhakti happens pretty fast. So we have a big hope. Just that this part of sadhana bhakti needs to be done diligently with the volunteer effort. And that becomes easy when we are with the sincere devotee association. Okay, so that's about gradation of the jivas and the sadhana bhakti, and then the pure devotee and the vision of the pure devotee. Now coming to the time. So here, Lord Kapila is saying how the devotee sees time as the expansion of the Lord. How Lord Vishnu permeates into every atom and also is pervading everywhere as time factor. So in this way, the Lord is causing transformation of material objects in the form of time. And the time is the shelter of everyone. The Lord in the form of time is the shelter of everyone, and he's entering into everyone's heart. And he's the master of all masters. And he causes every being to be annihilated by another, all in the form of time factor. And Paramatma, he holds no one dear. He inspires devotees and destroys those who forgot the Lord. Matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha. Paramatma sits in the heart of the living entities. And if they have inclination to turn towards the Lord, he gives the memory. He gives the remembrance so they can practice bhakti. In other words, so they can start to turn towards him and start to reciprocate with him. But if somebody is not willing to do so, then he just lets the person forget about him. So based on the will of the jiva, then Paramatma either gives the remembrance or forgetfulness. Yeah? And then because of the time factor, due to the fear or order of time factor, on the order of time factor, demigods function. And the order of time factor, seasons change. On the order of time factor, rivers flow. This is all because Paramatma, Garbhodakasai Vishnu is pervading everywhere, the whole Brahmanda. So every object has its own dharma. Water's dharma is to wet. Fire dharma is to burn, right? River's dharma is to flow. Ocean's dharma is not to flow. Earth dharma is not to sink. Planet's dharma is to hang in the planetary system. Sky dharma is to provide the space. This is the dharma of that particular element. And how is that being maintained? It's because the Lord has entered into every atom. And that's why each atom is expressing its own dharma. Yeah. And also the Gunavataras, they are also doing their jobs of creation, annihilation, and destruction on the order of time or influence of time. So in this way, the time causes transformation here, changes here in this material world. But the time has no change. It is an eternal principle. Before this material world came into existence, time was there. It is present now. And when this annihilation happens, the time will still be present. So in this way, time is causing the change, but the time will not change. And this way, the time dissolves the universe at the end. So this is information about the time factor. Very wonderful. We have heard it. What is the application for us as devotees? In the very beginning, Lord Kapila says, here, these are just the bullet points, but if you have a chance, please read Srimad Bhagavatam, at least just those translations. It is beautiful, beautiful. Just reading those translations, non-stop, just read them. It just takes 5 minutes. It's very nice. So Lord Kapila says that the devotees, understanding this time factor as the energy of expansion of the Lord, they are fearless. This is our application point here. Why are we speaking of the time? So devotees are fearless because they understand time as the expansion of the Lord. What does that really mean? Boiling it down to our practical lives. See, time causes changes everywhere. Time causes changes in this body, changes in the bodies around the people, around us, right? Changes in the things around, changes with everything around. So the changes happens because of the time. And most of the time, the change is a destructive change, right? So that is the distinguishing factor of the time element here and in the spiritual world. Spiritual world also there is time, but there is no destruction. Here, the time element causes destruction. The time is transforming, changing things and causing destruction, right? So this is the characteristic of time here. If somebody is not practicing devotion, they would be disturbed by the changes happening under the influence of time. Changes happening in the bodies, changes happening in the life, and the time factor, not knowing, the unknown factor after, what happens after death, that uncertainty, right? So this uncertainty of what happens in the future and what happens after death, this uncertainty and the changing factor and destroying factor, these 3 elements of the time, they can cause fear in somebody who is not practicing devotion. With the changes that are happening around in the body or in the people or in the things around, if somebody is not practicing devotion, they would have resentment. They would not, it is difficult for them to accept those changes happening. Yeah. But for a devotee who is practicing devotion, they would see those changes happening as the influence of time, as the energy of the Lord. They would not be disturbed much. Right. And the element of not knowing, the element of the unknown thing. That unknown feeling of unknown. That for somebody who's not practicing devotion, that uncertainty or unknown factor of what's going to happen after death, that will cause fear in them. But for the devotees, because they know that this is a journey of a soul, and it'll be just the transmigration of the soul, and because they also see that this time factor as the energy of the Lord and the change is inevitable, they do not have fear. Abhaya Charanaravinam, because they take the shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord and see the future within the same life or after death as controlled by Krishna as a time factor. Because of that, they do not have fear. They just see the death as a change in the body, change in the service. In that way, they do not have fear because they have synced with Krishna. Those who do not practice devotion, they did not sync with Krishna. That's why they have a resentment with the changes that happen around because of the time factor, and they have fear about the future and after death. For devotees, they are in agreement with the changes that are happening around. They are not resentful. And for the future element, they are not fearful. They leave it to Krishna. So this is our application based on the time factor for us in our lives. So in that way, we have seen the jiva, gradation of the jiva, and how there our application is to see how to know our sadhana bhakti is going towards raga bhakti or sadhana bhakti is progressing. How do we know? How much of qualities of goodness or qualities of Vaishnavas are we acquiring? That will be the indicator of the evolution of the consciousness. That's the take home for us now from that subtopic. And from this subtopic of time, we have the take home point. Because we are practicing devotion, we are not in resentment with the changes that are happening around because of the time. And we are not fearful about the future or after leaving this body. Yeah. So that is about this chapter, about the time, Kala. Now, moving on to Samsriti. As we discussed, Mother Devahuti, she's thinking, okay, by this time, if somebody is convinced, then they would look to start devotional service, bhakti. But if they are not, let them hear this. This particular topic of Samsriti, we will discuss this and I'll let you know at the end what actually happened in the real life. So we will go to the next chapter. That will be a pretty quick one. It's not very pleasant topic. That's all about punishment. So we are not going to put a lot of time on that, but we will know what Srimad Bhagavatam is saying. Maybe some of these things would give wanted effect on a few of us and take up bhakti more seriously. So we will go to the next one. So that is Samsriti, life and death of materialists. Okay. Here again, if possible, please just read the translations in Srimad Bhagavatam. Beautiful. Lord Kapila says it one after another, like that, like that, like that. And when we read that, we're like, wait a minute. This is what our life is. Majority of our life is this. That's how we will feel. So Lord Kapila starts saying, see, these conditioned souls, he's addressing his mother. Oh, dear mother, these conditioned souls, they do not realize that they are like clouds and they are being controlled by the winds. So these conditioned jivas are controlled by the time. And what they do is they work hard so much thinking that this is their permanent place to live. They spend their time, effort, everything thinking that this is a permanent place. As we hear from Lord Kapila, please see what we are doing. And how much of our time in a day is spent with, for what Lord Kapila is saying, how much time in our whole lifetime is actually spent in kind of this thought process and efforts. So as we hear from Lord Kapila, we can just see where we are. Okay, so Lord Kapila says that. So they think, first of all, they do not realize that they are controlled by time. And they think this is the permanent place to live. So they invest their time, their thought and hard, all their work, thinking that this, accumulating things, thinking this is a permanent place. And guess what? After they have accumulated all that and put all that hard work, they know that they might be losing this at any time. And when they lose it, they lament. In this way, their time goes away. This is how they spend their time. And coming to how much by default they are just on a bodily platform, Annamaya Kosha. The halat, the condition of these conditioned souls is so strange. Whatever body they are in, dog, cat, pig, humans, whatever, amoeba, mosquito, snake, elephant, whatever body they are in, they're pretty much happy with their body. The pig is very happy with its body. So as the human beings, pig doesn't think, hey, what kind of body do I have? What am I doing here? This nasty thing. No. Every embodied soul is pretty much comfortable and happy with the body that it is in. Very dangerous situation, right? And the other thing is, those embodied beings that are there in the hell and undergoing the punishment, they should have a different kind of body in order to tolerate all that punishment in the hell. So even they think that their body is okay in the hell, even when they're undergoing the punishment. And we will see why it is like that. Because if they're not comfortable in their body, especially in the hellish planet, they cannot take that ghastly torture that goes on there. So that is the reason why they are okay with their body in the hell. Otherwise, they will not be able to take that torture. So that's the reasoning for that. But now talking about the bodies on this planet, every body, every species, they are pretty much happy in whatever body they are in. And why is it? Why is it that they're so much at home with their bodies and everybody around that are related to the bodies? It is because Atma Jaya Sutagara Pashut Dravina Bandhushu Nirudha Moola Hridaya Atmanam Bahumanyate. Because the conditioned soul is so deep rooted in the physical platform. So the default thought is based on me, my body, and anything relevant to this body, like that. So in this context, there is a story where Indra, who was sitting on the throne of Indra, for some reason he had to take a birth of pig, a pig. So this pig Indra, I'm calling pig Indra because he was Indra before. He gets married and he has his own pig family, yeah. And then he's very happy in that pig body. He doesn't remember he's Indra. He was Indra before. Very happy in that pig body. Going in that filthy places, eating that filthy thing. Very happy. He was very happy and he thinks, oh, what a wonderful life I have. I have my wife. I have my family. I am having fun here. What a tasty stuff I'm eating. This life is good. Indra was thinking like that. Pig, in the pig body. So pig was thinking like that. Brahma saw this. And Brahma was amazed, thinking, oh, how wonderful and amazing this illusory energy is. He doesn't even remember that he was Indra. He's in the pig body and he's very much comfortable. And he thinks he's very happy. I have to go remind him. So he goes to that pig Indra and says, hey, pig Indra, pig, you're actually Indra. Do you know that? Because of a curse, you just happen to come into this body. So I'm here to take you back to the Indraloka. You can sit on that throne. What would be the response? This pig, Indra, he says, what? What are you talking about? What is that Indraloka? I don't know about the Indraloka or any other happiness. This is so wonderful to be here. This pig and the place that I'm living and my wife and my piglets, everything is beautiful here. I'm not going to come anywhere. You don't talk to me about that Indraloka. I'm very happy here. He was adamant. Adamant. Brahma didn't know what to do. Then, one after the other, he takes away the piglets. He kills, he causes the death of the piglets. And then this pig cries so much for the pig because the piglets had died. And then he kills, Brahma arranges for the death of the wife of pig Indra. And then this pig Indra, slowly he starts developing detachment. He feels very morose and he goes, oh, my piglets are gone, my wives are gone. What do I do? My life. He goes in that. Even then he will not be able to come out of that. And then Brahma had to drag him to Indraloka. He had to pull him. So in that way, it is very deep-rooted. In that way, the illusion is so strong. Our bodily conception and attachments to anything related to body is by default so strong. Insurmountable energy of the Lord. Mama Maya Duratyaya. Mam eva ye prapatyante. Only when we take the prapatti of the Lord to the bhakti process, then we can step back and see, oh my God, is this the illusion? Then we let the Lord take over as we take prapatti. That is the only way to come out of the illusion. Otherwise, Mama Maya Duratyaya. We cannot come on our own. We can come out of it only by taking up to the bhakti process, the shelter of Krishna. Okay, so Lord Kapila continues. Okay, so this is how they are very much attached to the bodily relations. And now he explains. So far he has explained how attached to the body and bodily relations are. And now he's explaining what a person goes through to maintain the family. Now in this day and age, it's not just the father, mother also goes through the same pain. So Lord Kapila says, they're always anxious. In spite of being, he actually says, burning in anxiety. Bhavamahadavarni. They burn with anxiety inside, but still they continue the efforts to keep their social life and family life going on. And they don't mind doing violence also, and doing corruption too, in order to earn some livelihood to maintain the family. This is all about the conditioned soul. And the dusthiti of the conditioned soul, Lord Kapila says, they do not know what happiness means. All the time what they do is to come out of the miseries. And when they come out of the misery, then they feel relieved and they think that is happiness. They do not know what happiness means. Only the relief from misery, one after the other. That's what they look for, and that's what they think is happiness. That is the dusthiti of the conditioned souls. All their time is spent in only counteracting the miseries. They do not know what happiness means. And in this way, they work for the family, to maintain the family, and to maintain themselves socially, And in this way, they age. And as the time passes by, then they will not have any more energy to go on, work, do the hard work, and then they will stop working. Because they stop working and because their productivity has come down, they will start to lose respect. Respect from around. And then he tolerates that or she tolerates that. And that's one episode. And the next episode is now the body is starting to shut down. Each organ system starts coughing, eyes starts bulging, digestion gets impaired. They will not be able to eat enough because their stomach has problems. So in this way, their body shuts down, the old age and disease takes over. Finally, the conditioned soul meets death. And the misery does not stop there. The Yamarajas, Yamadutas, they come. They come to snatch this soul away. Yeah? And this is about the soul, which is not practicing devotion. So please do not be disturbed much. Okay? Because it is going to get even more not so pleasant. But this is about the soul that is not practicing devotion. So the death comes, and then Yamarajas come. Yamarajas, they snatch the soul away. And for the devotees, Himala, Yamarajas, the Yamadutas, they don't touch the devotees. Their jurisdiction is different. Devotees' jurisdiction is with Vishnudutas, not the Yamadutas. Okay, continuing with the conditioned soul. So the soul is snatched away from the body. And this soul has to go through so much of torture on the way to hell. 99,000 yojanas are crossed in just 2 to 3 muhurtas, so swiftly that subtle body, the soul with the subtle body is pulled with so much of torture. And a lot of description is given here, how violently that jiva, the sinful jiva, is punished in the hellish planets. For those who had illicit connections with the opposite sex, then they had to embrace a fire, iron rod that is burning in fire. And the other kind of hells are a person is pushed down from the cliff into the river, which is filled with feces, stool, blood, pus, urine, all those things. And the other kinds of punishments are their body is chopped up and then given to vultures, and they're made to eat their own flesh. So many. Yeah. So many. Very graphical description is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. And at the end, it is described that, they are made, some are made to eat the stool and the filthy things. And at the end of their time in the hell, they will be born onto the earth to complete their hellish, the punishment. And that is how we see the pigs, right? So they eat stool, they eat feces. And it is understood that their previous life was in the hellish planet, and they were made to eat that, and this is their next life where they had to take back their karma like that. So in this way, a sinful person spends his time in this way, and after that, the soul has to go through these punishments. And then here, one more thing is, here we also heard, right? They need to have a different kind of body in the hellish planets. Otherwise, this mortal body, human body, cannot tolerate all the torture that goes there. So in this way, To the question of Mother Huti, Lord Kapila responds how a conditioned soul goes through miseries starting from the birth. Actually, we will go to the next one. It's pretty quick one too. That way, the Samsriti part will be completed. Because here in this, it tells us about the miseries before birth. So far, what we have heard was miseries after the birth, and these are the miseries before the birth. We will quickly hear about this because it's there in Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'll tell you, as I said, I'll tell you something that has happened in the real life after we hear about this. So when the soul takes birth again after experiencing all that miseries, when the soul takes birth again, what happens? Here in this third canto, Lord Kapila is actually explaining the embryology. This is a science of embryology. The development of the fetus is all embryology, is very well described in this canto, in this chapter. But to go through it quickly, the birth, the fetus, when the ovum mixes with the sperm, then the ovulation, then the embryo is formed. After that, the embryo that gets bigger. It gets bigger in size, and slowly, this is the timeline of how the fetus in the mother's womb is developing. By second month, head, arms, legs, and other limbs, they all develop. By third month, nails, hair, bones, skin, and develop. Fourth month, 7 dhatus develop, 7 layers. Those dhatus develop. And by fifth month, the hunger and thirst develops. Sixth month, the whole baby is completely covered by the skin. The whole skin organ is develops completely by sixth month, and by seventh month, the baby will have consciousness. So this is all embryology. This science is so very well known in India, in Srimad Bhagavatam, even before the embryology in the medical sciences in the Western world came. And even more detail information is present in the Vedic literature about embryology. Anyway, so all this happens inside the mother's womb. And what is the fetus in the mother's womb? What actually is happening with the fetus in the mother's womb? The fetus is being nourished by the mother. This is the umbilical cord. And Srimad Bhagavatam is saying, Lord Kapila is saying, this baby is really experiencing a lot of suffering because it's a tender body and there are so many germs in there, in the amniotic sac, in the womb. And all these germs are biting this baby. And because of the pain, this baby falls unconscious. And when the mother eats anything bitter, pungent, hot, salt, anything like that, the same is transferred to the baby and the baby experiences pain. And it is so compact inside the mother's womb, baby cannot move. So it is not a good experience. And then if the fetus is fortunate enough, then the fetus would remember the Lord. If the fetus is fortunate enough. Right? So then the jiva, these are beautiful prayers. This is something nice in this whole turmoil, something to hear. Then this fetus, Paramatma is there with the fetus inside, with us when we were fetus in the mother womb. This is our story, right? Paramatma has been with us at all times. So the baby, the fetus is praying. The baby is saying, oh Lord, I take shelter of your lotus feet. I know being sinful, I got into this situation due to Maya. And he is also saying, along with me, the Lord is present here too. I am affected with all these things that are happening here in the womb, with this pain and miseries, but he is unaffected. He is changeless. Oh, I am in this material body, though I am a spirit soul. But the Lord is unaffected and he is situated so transcendental. How can I serve? How can I serve the Lord again, being so much conditioned as I am? How is it possible to serve the Lord without his mercy or his devotees' mercy? No. Fetus is thinking like that. If the fetus is fortunate, then it starts to think like that. And then it goes, oh, when would I come out of this miserable condition around me? And then again it thinks, no. If I go out, then I will be affected with Maya. Here I am. I know these conditions are miserable, but I will take shelter of the Lord. I will stay here, and because I will be thinking of the Lord, and because I will be surrendering unto the Lord, and because I will be bonding with the Lord in Sharanagati, the thought of the Lord causes bonding with the Lord. So this thought of the Lord is like a shield for us, so we don't experience the pain. So same is the case of the fetus here. It is thinking, I will stay here and destroy my sufferings with my consciousness by surrendering unto you, my Lord. That's what the fetus is saying. So the miserable condition is there, but the baby is saying, though it is miserable around, I will not go out, because here I can think of you. And by thinking of you, I am forming a protective blanket of layer around me. So I don't experience any miseries here. But if I go out, what if I forget you? Then I will be in miseries again. Then the miseries will afflict me. I will be afflicted by the miseries. So that's why I will stay here. Though it is miserable, I'll stay here because I can think of you. And that thinking will be my protective blanket. So I don't feel any miseries, though there are miseries around. This is how the baby was thinking. By this time, then the parturition happens, the baby is expelled, and immediately after the baby is expelled, the Maya catches up. Aham mameti, bhutair panchabir arabdhe, dehe dehi abhuta asakrat. Aham mameti asatgrahaha karoti kumatir matim. The moment baby comes into the world, then immediately the illusion catches up. What does, by default, baby thinks, okay, it's me, and whoever I'm seeing around is mine. So this is the story of a conditioned soul. Beginning in the womb and taking birth and clouded by this illusion of ahammameti. And then on top of that, all the prayers that are offered by the baby in the womb. If the same baby is getting bad association, then all the good qualities, Satyam, Shaucham, Daya, Maunam, Buddhi, Shri, Yasha, Kshama, all these qualities would go away with the sinful association. So Padam Padam Yat Vipadam. So that's the story. As the baby grows up, then if that baby gets sinful association, then that person would spend sinful life. And then, as we have just discussed in the previous chapter, how their life just goes with so self-centeredness and so caught up in their thoughts and miseries, and how the whole life is spent, the time and energy and effort is spent only with maintenance of the family and self-centeredness, and how how their body starts shutting down as they get to the old age, and then of course leaving the body and the emirajas and all the punishments in the hell. We have heard that all. So this is the misery in Samsriti. Mother Devahuti had a reason why she has asked all these things. It is not pleasant at all, but she had a reason why she asked this thing. Now I'll tell you. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, it was being distributed in those days, and I have heard that the devotees, they were reading Srimad Bhagavatam in those days, new devotees who joined the Bhakti. When they came to this chapter, when they have heard this sinful, the punishments that they would get in different hellish planets, they were shocked, and some of the devotees left the movement. They stopped practicing. It just shocked them. But after a period of time, then they've realized that this is inevitable. This is the karma cycle. So they came back to bhakti again. So they can get, they can wash off their karma, and they started the bhakti process again. And the other stories were those devotees who were not, namke vaste practicing devotion, but not so serious. When they came to this chapter, they really got alert. They really got serious in bhakti. And so this way, this chapter was serving its own purpose. No wonder why Mother Devahuti asked this question, and Lord Kapila has explained everything so graphically. Yeah. So that's about the Samsriti. And this is a very encouraging word that we have to hear from Lord Kapila. He says, don't be horrified, and then move in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. So when somebody is living their life with detachment and in devotional service with proper vision, then they're not afflicted by this samsriti. So that is what we needed to get at the end of all this. So this is for somebody who are exclusively in karma cycle and did not take up bhakti. But for those who have taken up bhakti, then Lord Krishna, what did he say? Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paryupasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. When we say, Krishna, I am yours, then we are the property of Krishna. And Krishna has to take care of his property. So he will take care of his property, the devotees. So for devotees, there is no samsriti. That we need to. So that's all, dear devotees. That is what we have discussed so far. So we have heard about after sadhana bhakti, we have heard about the evolution of the consciousness and how the topmost consciousness is Purna Vikasita Chetana, pure devotion, and the qualities of a pure devotee that we have heard. And for us, the take-home point was to see that our consciousness is evolving, blossoming. The indicators are the Vaishnava qualities, goodness and beyond. And then after that, we have heard about the time factor and how the devotees would look at time factor as the energy of the Lord. And in that way, whatever effect the time would have in our lives, either it is destruction part or the changes that it would bring, or the unknown element, the unknown factor, that part, whatever the factor may be, then the devotee is less disturbed and is not resentful with the effect of time, and is not feared with the future, with the unpredictability, unknown factor of the future, or the life after death. So that we have heard. And after that, we have heard about samsriti, and somebody who takes up the devotional process is out of the karma cycle, out of samsriti. That is it for this time. I'll pause here, and then would like to hear something from you all, to dear.